Alright everyone, we start off today with the Nuance channel update on the Columbia University chaos currently going on. Some dozens of students have barricaded themselves inside of the dean's home in protest because Columbia began clearing out the student protesters. They're protesting against Israel and in favor of Gaza. Again, there are different factions of protests currently going on at multiple universities in the United States. There are some double standards being applied. Columbia started suspending students that refused to disembark from their encampment, setting up tents and stuff like that, waving signs and shouting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and free Gaza, and all of these other things. The problem is that depending on the specific subtype of protesters, I know that they're all leftoids for the most part, but I've actually got to side with them. Then there are other groups, of course, that I can't possibly countenance. If you're throwing rocks at people or shouting epithets at a random Jewish student, I can't support that. But if a student is simply sitting there on campus property in a tent, they've paid tuition, they would not get in trouble if they set up a tent on the property to raise awareness of the conditions of the homeless or to protest the existence of the white race or something like that. They wouldn't get in trouble for that. That'd be perfectly countenanced. They wouldn't dare to break up the protest. As long as they weren't harassing or attacking somebody, they would not be punished in any meaningful way. When you're suspending students for, in large part, simply exercising their First Amendment rights, their right to express themselves, their right to protest, I can't side with that. It doesn't matter if you don't like their message. Again, disclaimer as always, I'm not Team Palestine or Team Israel. As far as I'm concerned, the whole region is hell, has been hell, and probably will remain hell for the indefinite future. There's probably nothing that we can do to save the Palestinians or the Israelis from their collective governments and the collective militant movements in that region. It's probably not possible. Donald Trump, the best diplomat of the modern age, since Theodore fucking Roosevelt, failed at this too. He attempted to get a long-standing peace accord signed between the Palestinian Authority and the Israelis. He failed. He pivoted. He said Korea will be easier and went off to the DPRK to go and have a rapprochement with fucking Kim Jong-un of all people. He found him more easily reasoned with than the Israeli or Palestinian authorities. But he got the Abraham Accords. At least he stopped World War III for the second time. The first time by beating Hillary Clinton, of course. There's chaos here. Now, do I believe that students should barricade themselves inside the dean's building? No. There's going to be property damage. You're trespassing at some point and stirring up shit. Is it a reaction to something that Columbia is doing that is also at least partially unacceptable, depending on the student that's being suspended or dragged off and detained? Yeah, it's a reaction to that. A group of peaceable students simply sitting by the side of the road waving signs, happening to want to sleep in tents, to make a sort of protest. It's not illegal. They're on their own campus. I realize there are some people from off campus that are joining them. If you want to detain them and kick them out, that's perfectly fine. This should be a student-only protest anyway. It's their campus. They're the ones paying the tuition. Them and their parents' credit cards, mostly. They have the right to express themselves. It doesn't matter if you believe that they stand for the wrong thing. Look, back in the day, there were all sorts of protest sit-ins and things like that in protest of the Iraq War. What were those, mostly millennial, students called? Unpatriotic. You're a pinko, you love terrorism, you love Al-Qaeda, you're pro-Osama. I see the same spin right now with these student protests. Look at the news right now. Look up Columbia University protests, or Columbia University in general. What do you see? Huge disconnect in messaging. You see certain sites, if they're very gung-ho for Israel, it's rioters storm the dean's office. They have no legitimate reason. Oh my God, they're not protesting anymore. They're rioting. They've got no grievance. If you look at mainly left-wing media, you'll see protesters are demonstrating at the dean's office. And we condemn the suspension or expulsion of students with regards to the original protests. Neither of these groups have any nuance to them, though. There are groups right now that are standing around intimidating Jewish students. They should be roundly condemned. Or they're supporting Hamas. Yeah, I don't think that they should be suspended for saying, Hail Hamas or something like that. It's sort of like, All right, well, they're not giving material support to Hamas, so it's a little bit different. They're just making shitty Facebook posts and Instagram selfies and stuff like that. They're not changing the world. They're delusional. It's all in their mind. Sort of like with the anti-war protest. That war dragged on for quite a while. It wasn't random campus protests that stopped it. It was the depletion of the ability to make money from the situation, and I wish more students understood the economic dynamic behind Raytheon and Boeing stock and things like that. But we've seen it before. The messaging is very, very focused either on one end or another. It's either very blatantly pro-Palestine, Hamas can do no wrong, or it's we must protect the Jews at all costs, and so any form of protest against them is evil. If a student group, Jewish, Islamic, white or black, gay or straight, tall or short, whatever the fuck it happens to be, is not harassing other people, is not throwing rocks, is not impeding other people's right to free movement, cornering people, beating them up, or anything like that. They're not on the path, so to speak. They're right off to the side, and they're simply holding signs and chanting and playing the bongos like a bunch of fucking hippies. They're not breaking the law, and they're not doing anything wrong. You don't have to agree with what they're expressing, but you have to allow them to express themselves. And by the way, when you crack down, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. They wouldn't have broken into the dean's house, now would they, if Columbia hadn't started suspending students for, in some cases, literally no reason whatsoever. The fact that the university says you can't have your tent here, okay, do you suspend students for minor rule breaking under any other circumstances? Because I have a feeling, if this were BLM, okay, and this was a we want reparations protest, I highly doubt that Columbia would come in, send in the goon squad, drag people off, and suspend or expel them. I'm just going to point out there is a double standard that's being held right here and now. It's obvious. There's an obvious double standard. You don't need to be Team Palestine to understand that it's fully in play. You don't need that. All you have to do is look at recent history. We've seen this shit before. College kids, they're coming of age, they're young adults, they want to stand for something, they want to matter, etc. In the age of Instagram and YouTube and stuff, and some of them just want to clout chase and stuff like that. And so they engage in this sort of behavior. Only for this particular kind of protest, which becomes very, very problematic for the university. I would point out, people are saying, well, divest in Columbia because they're countenancing these anti-Semitic protests, so the AIPAC and the ADL come in. Only under that particular auspice does the university crack down. It doesn't crack down on students if they stage a sit-in and say, we want reparations, whitey bad. They don't crack down if BLM says, we want reparations, everyone take a knee and apologize for slavery that you never had a hand in. Nobody does jack shit about that. Only under this one particular circumstance, and it's inexplicable, I can't imagine why, would the university crack down in this manner. They're cracking down because they're afraid of losing investment from their big, and it's happened, not just to Columbia, but to these other universities. Some of the big money that's behind funding them is saying, you need to knock it off. This is all about the moolah, in other words. Their actions are completely controlled by Benji Greens. I wonder why. That's about all. Peace out.